Hey, what's up, gamers?
Yes. At random intervals, you can actually hear the
Skarner
breathing, because I guess he's so fat that he's out of breath. So, you hear someone breathing. Yes. What the fuck is that?
Make my earthquake.
You hear that plane?
Make my earthquake.
It's really a plane in the background. He's breathing again. You can just hear him breathing really heavily. I think a fucking nipple, that's why. Oh yeah. Got a boner, so he was like, oh my god. Ultimately, I despise this film. I may sound unenthused, but that's only because I am defeated. I am defeated. These are my least favorite kinds of bad movies. The ones that are so bad that they're just bad and boring. I will give credit where credit is due. So you must know this film is a real piece of feces when I can't even walk away with one or two things I like. It takes a real lack of talent to be this draining. You know what the saddest part is? I feel like I spent more time writing and editing this review than the total time that was spent on production for this movie. I'm not even making a joke. I genuinely believe I care more about this review and put in more time compared to the people that shambled this together. And this isn't even one of these.
Oh my gosh, it didn't hit him.
Charming. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
That was weird.
I remember watching the J.J. Abrams TED Talk about filmmaking, where he talks about how technology has advanced to the point where anyone and their grandmothers could make a movie if they really wanted to now. And Shark Exorcist is one of the sad, deplorable side effects of that fact.
The most incredible sort of mystery, I think, is now the question of what comes next, because it is now democratized. So now the creation of media it's everywhere. The stuff that I was lucky and begging for to get when I was a kid is now ubiquitous. And so there's an amazing sense of opportunity out there when I think of the filmmakers who exist out there now who would have been silenced, you know, who have been silenced in the past. It's a very exciting thing. I used to say in classes and, you know, lectures and stuff that to someone who wants to write, go write, do your thing, it's free, no, you don't need permission to go write. But now I can say, go make your movie. There's nothing stopping you. Go make your movie. There's nothing stopping you. Go make your movie. There's nothing stopping you. Go make your movie. There's nothing stopping you.
I like to get wet.
But I don't mind making it my mission to make these people pay and own up for the crimes against film they've committed. It might take me until I'm 146 years old, but by crikey, I will train my children to join me in the search if need be. Obviously, this film is at the bottom of the list in terms of quality, and if you'd like to see a full list of the search for the worst movies, an internet
Oh wait, does Skarner want to do something?
in the description that will take you to a handy IMDb
I'd hang out with Skarner for a bit. It's pretty cool.
In correct order. Make sure you check out the Trying to
Kinda slow, I think.
to see my initial reaction, alongside the search for the worst playlist, which has hours more content for you to enjoy. And as far as what movie's coming next, I'm actually going to leave this up to you to decide. That's right, if you click the card button, you can bring up a little voting system. The movie with the most votes will obviously be the winner, and I'll have to endure the inevitable awfulness and add it to the search. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Don't leave, it's my fault. Oh, I don't have my cue. What's this Skarner doing? No! No. See one more auto. There we go. Don't believe it's my fault. Do 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 do. Oh, I didn't have my cue.
Oh boy, do I hate this movie. I'm so angry that it's going to be difficult for me to stay reasonable in this review. But the complete and utter
Comments keep curving.
ignorance of XX might conclude to be the worst horror film I've ever seen. Chances are you haven't heard of this movie, and neither had I until I stumbled across it when I was casually browsing Netflix at 1 in the morning. I was in the mood for some horror and had a quick look on IMDb when I noticed the alluring clickbait poster. The user score was very low, but I noticed the Metascore of 64 and came to the conclusion that it can't be that bad. Surely. So XX is a horror anthology movie. If you don't know what an anthology movie is, it's a collection of short films that usually tend to have...
That's the most you can get, 3.
In terms of genre,
Because I hit the cannon and I also hit him.
Etc, etc. The 4 short films in XX have no link other than the fact that they're horror stories. Well, one other thing. XX isn't just called XX because 2 X's next to each other look scary. What it actually represents is the chromosome that makes you a lady. XX. The front cover depicts a lipstick kiss with a scary skull on it. The tagline is 4 deadly tales
by 4 killer women.
That's the gimmick of the movie, that the 4 stories were all directed by women and all supposedly offer a unique female perspective. I'd argue that when you actually sit down and watch each of the short films, that this premise is not used as a crutch at all, really. In fact, if the marketing didn't make it abundantly clear that this is some kind of feminist thing, then I doubt you'd even notice. I found an incredibly awkward interview where some of the directors of the segments all talk about how everyone hates women or whatever, and it made me wonder if the claim that
we noticed women being passed over for all of the jobs and all the other anthologies that were coming out, and so we decided to make one of our own. So XX was created in direct response to the lack of opportunities for women in film, particularly in the horror genre.
I don't want boots yet. I just want damage.
There are far more men working in film than there are women, but the claim that horror movies don't offer opportunities for women seems a little strange to me. In fact, some of the most influential horror films have women as the main characters, or at least really important characters. But let's not split hairs over this, because honestly, I didn't even think about this film's agenda while watching it. Now, obviously, I do not care what gender the director of a movie is. In fact, I care more about making a video on Mars bars more than caring about that. And I really don't care about making a video on Mars bars at all. So please take note that this is not an attack on this project simply because it's empowering women in this medium. That is not the problem at all. In fact, it's a decent idea, because there are clearly not enough female directors working in film today. Who are the most popular male directors alive at the moment? I suppose there's Christopher Nolan, Quentin Tarantino, David Fincher, Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, Michael Bay, Zack Snyder, Woody Allen, Tim Burton, David Lynch, Clint Eastwood, Ridley Scott, Edgar Wright, Peter Jackson, Paul Thomas Anderson, the good one, Paul W.S. Anderson, the bad one, Wes Anderson. It's a whole lot of Andersons. Now let's flip that over and try and tell me how many popular female directors you can think of from the top of your head. Okay, go. Well, there's James Cameron's ex-wife. Everyone knows her. Everyone likes her movies. I think a lady directed that film Raw. That was pretty good. Who else was there? Now come on, Kite Man. That's cheating. But the point is, when you search film directors into Google, you have to scroll past 20 dudes.
Oh my gosh, the Soraka.
51 odd directors featured at the top here. There are only 5 women, unless I counted wrong. Which is quite likely. Let me stress, I do not have an agenda here. I'm simply stating the fact that there are not very many female directors compared to the amount of male directors. The reason I'm highlighting this is because I cannot stress enough that I'm not criticizing the gender of the directors. I do not give a single fuck. I actually think this is kind of a good idea, but what I am doing is just criticizing 4 terrible, embarrassing piece of shit short films that were clumsily strung together into a bad horror anthology that I equally would have hated if the same short films were made by men. That is all. I have no choice but to acknowledge this because of the way the film is being sold, and I'd rather not be attacked by Tumblr. Fuck off, Tumblr. Now, before we properly dive into these films, let me just warn you that if you're very, very easily scared, this might not be the video for you. I personally don't think anything about these films is very frightening, besides their awfulness, of course, but consider yourself warned. So let's start with the first thing you'll be greeted with when you start up XX. A bunch of pointless stop-motion spooky visuals. I normally dislike the word pretentious, but this comes across to me as nothing but pretentious amateur student film drivel. Its only purpose is to offer vague,
did I ADC?
visual noise.
That was weird to say. Oh, he went to my lane.
And it also happens to act as the interlude between the 4 short films. I'm willing to accept that perhaps
That's
I just
rude.
didn't get it, and that I should just take it for being cool and epic looking and spooky, but these sections to me were completely meaningless visuals that seem like they belong in a creepypasta video before they do a movie that's supposed to convey a coherent atmosphere, mood, characters, and story, or at the very least, you know, scare me. My reaction after every one of them finished was to say, what? What was the point of that? The horror anthology movie VHS.
He actually,
in my eyes, but
wow.
without its moments, at least attempted to provide
too.
some kind of context as to why these admittedly unrelated stories were presented in the same movie, by having some people stumble across some old videotapes in a creepy house and watching them along with the audience as the narrative device to attempt to give it some kind of structure, not a bunch of pointless visuals that have no link or through line to the rest of the movie.
I can just exhaust him, I think.
The Box. So the first actual short film is called The Box. It's an interesting idea that's let down by the lack of development on all fronts. Flat direction and camera work, atrocious acting.
Okay.
And the ultimate frustration of it not being remotely scary. The basic premise is that while a family are on a train, a creepy guy who looks a bit like the late Robin Williams sits next to them with a big red present. The kid asks, "What's in the present?" And the guy lets them have a peek. You do not get to see what's in it. I wish I knew what was in it. Later on, when the family are at the dinner table, the kid who looked in the box says he's not hungry.
You are not hungry.
You're always hungry.
You know, to give it a little credit, the little girl is surprisingly decent for a kid actor in this scene. In other scenes, she's pretty bad though. So I don't even know why I stopped this review to even make this point. To be honest, the main problem is the awkward, clunky dialogue and the bizarre way it's delivered.
Sure.
Yeah, John is pretty strong.
Yeah, Dax.
So as time goes on and we have more and more and more dinner scenes, we notice that the little boy is refusing to eat anything, even spaghetti, which he loves.
You want spaghetti?
How did the Batman minion die?
Suspicious-looking guy with the red present. Days pass and they don't take him to hospital. They just get angry at him.
God damn it, will you just eat?
I'm not hungry.
Then they finally take him to the doctor after he hasn't eaten for 5 days, and he says that he should eat because there are people starving all over the world.
There's people starving all over the world.
Don't you think you should leave with, because Danny, you need energy to fuel your body so you don't waste away and die? Not because, Danny, a poor African child could have eaten that delicious pizza that went to waste. You should feel guilty about that, Danny.
You say he hasn't eaten in 5 days.
Absolutely nothing.
Last show.
As you can see, the dialogue really is the ultimate weakest link here. The genuinely interesting premise becomes instantly laughable when the very words the characters are saying are making you roll your eyes. The doctor asks why they waited so many days to bring him to hospital, and the only response is,
I don't know.
wow, what great parenting. The mum overhears the kids whispering to each other, which leads to the little girl now refusing to eat as well.
She says she's not hungry.
Why?
I don't know. I wish I did.
Are you taking any of this seriously?
Yeah, I'm gonna go help the Jacks.
Okay.
Come to me, Skyner.
Award for the most ham-fisted dialogue that no one in reality would ever say goes to...
Who's the mother?
The dad gets really fed up, and the kid whispers the secret truth about the box to him.
I'm gonna flash Q. There we go.
The first actual interesting event happens when you think they end up serving the mother for dinner, but no, it's just a dream. I've spoken before about how I'm really sick of this trope, and it's no different here, except instead of having the inevitable scene where she wakes up from a nightmare, it just cuts to being Christmas, and her leg looks fine, so I guess it didn't happen, and it's just jarring and confusing. Why did they edit it that way? Did they just not record her waking up? Sad part is this would have been a better ending than what we get in a second. Somehow the kids are still alive, but they're really skinny, and I guess that's shocking and scary. The kid hands his mum a present that reminds her of that stranger on the train that one time, and she asks if...
Was he playing some kind of a joke?
Yes. Conveniently, the entire family end up in hospital at the exact same time, even though their conditions have started at different times. But let's not get hung up on that. They all die and the mother is left desperately trying to find creepy, lazy-eye Robin Williams. But before anything else happens, it cuts to black and it's over. And that's the end of that one. Yeah, I know. You have to ask yourself what the point of that was. I believe that they made this with the intent of it being scary, but the box isn't scary. My elbow is scarier than the box. The only remotely frightening thing was when the family were eating the mother, and that didn't even happen. So when not a single element of this short film succeeds in either horror, acting, message or moral,
Aw, he took the one I was gonna keep.
Storytelling, or just about every element that makes up a short story or makes it effective, why on earth would I ever recommend it? The answer is I don't, because it's lame. Just completely lame. But nothing in the whole entire world is quite as lame as the next short film in this anthology. The birthday party. The birthday party might be the worst thing I've ever seen in my whole life. Ever. It's definitely the worst horror anything I've ever seen. And I've seen Leprechaun in the Hood. So you know it's bad. The stupidity is so baffling that I don't think you're actually going to believe me when I try to explain what happens in this one. And it took 2 people to write this. Wow! If you're all interested in movies, you've probably seen that video by now you see it called Opening Shots Tell Us Everything. With that in mind, explain to me what the opening shot of the birthday party means. She's sleeping in the middle of the day for some reason. The blue nightgown foreshadows the dark story that's about to happen. Maybe the cameraman just liked the look of her butt. That was so unbelievably unnecessary that it does nothing but highlight exactly why so much of modern horror completely relies on predictable, boring jump scares that make no sense. Because take that out and what would be scary? Nothing. There's nothing scary about this. Wow, this well-lit shot in a fucking kitchen. Wow, so scary. You don't have to do anything. You just edit in a loud noise and boom, everyone is losing their minds.
They can ping me, but that doesn't make them faster.
I don't really know who anyone is because nothing makes any sense, but the main character goes to see who I think is her partner, but he's died from something.
David!
Unfortunate. He has a glass in his hand, so I guess he drank too much and died. Her daughter, who is black, and no, it's never explained, shows up and she understandably tries to hide the corpse as to not traumatize her.
It's my birthday.
And for some reason,
Senna's actually
the girl
chunking.
pisses herself, not because she saw her dad die or anything, but I guess because kids piss themselves sometimes. I don't know. They leave the room and the woman continues as if nothing has happened. Why don't you call an ambulance? Why are you not doing anything? There is literally a dead body in the other room. Why are you acting like this? What the fuck even happened there? How was that a scare? That wasn't even a fake-out scare. It just has no logic in terms of anything that makes sense. She starts crying and I just want to know why she hasn't called an ambulance yet. What is she fucking doing? I can't feel sympathy for you if you're just a massive idiot. She goes back to the corpse and finds that he took some pills to kill himself. Okay, that still doesn't change anything. Why has she still not phoned an ambulance? She sees someone coming. Oh no, what would the logical thing be to do in this scene? Oh, I know. Let's pick up the body and hide with it in a closet. That won't be suspicious at all. Why? Why would you do that? For what purpose would somebody do that? Why is she making this very simple situation so needlessly complicated? This is so contrived and utterly moronic. I simply cannot conjure the words necessary to explain what is wrong with this. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. I fucking hate this so much you don't even understand. Why do they constantly shove in noises that are mixed so loud that you have no choice but to jump? You just can't do this. This is against the rules. Even the worst bottom of the barrel horror movies don't try to pull this kind of shit. At least have a cat there or something to jump at. The woman continues to drag the body around. This entire premise works better as a comedy than it does as a short horror film. At least then you have the excuse that nothing needs to make sense as long as it's consistently funny. In fact, if you took out that overbearing horror score and replaced it with some
5-man bot?
track, it would actually
You got this
work a
tower.
lot better.
I'm just a little bit worried about... Wow, I half helped her.
really awkward interview I mentioned earlier, the director of this segment says that she doesn't really like horror movies, so she just made it a comedy.
I think it is teeters the line of actually, in fact, a black comedy, because horror movies scare me too much to watch.
It's so confusing. It just makes no sense at all. Why is it in this horror anthology then? Why would you go from having one horror one, then a comedy
stop
horror
dragging
one
away my
that
minions.
isn't funny,
Get back over here.
that isn't horrific, to then
Stop.
have a more horror one? It's just horribly confusing.
Stop.
Stop. Makes no sense.
Oh my god. I'm getting the
Party
tilt.
Entertainment shows up and the woman offers the guy some money for the suit and then starts to put a dead body in it. Because that's really funny and scary or whatever you're going for. I really don't know what you're going for with this. I'm sorry. Again, this is more of an unintentional comedy than it is a horror movie. Cut to the birthday party scene, and for some reason the woman thought it would be just a brilliant idea to put the dead body in the bear costume in front of everyone at the other end of the dinner table. This isn't scary, it's just frustratingly stupid. Someone knocks into the corpse.
What if I went Triforce? That could get me some CDR.
Everyone starts screaming and it ends. First off, why would they all automatically assume that he's dead and not
Does
say
give attack speed, which I
passed out
don't
from
need.
drinking or overheating in that hot outfit?
I don't think I really need
Maybe
any
the
AD.
setup could work if he looked like a disgusting, rotting corpse, but that would be way too much effort for this drivel. And that's really where the problem lies. There would be a way to make this premise entertaining. The same could be said about any of the stories in this anthology, but unfortunately the execution is so sloppy and clearly rushed that every little detail makes no sense whatsoever. This section is by far the worst one of the four. Like, I'd be surprised if you sat looking at this video right now, wasn't equally as baffled as me, just like, what are you talking about? There has to be more. You have to explain what was happening.
Run it down, I
I'm sorry,
suppose.
I can't. It just makes no sense. I'm so fascinated by how awful it is that I actually think you should go out of your way to load this up on Netflix, if it's on there depending on your country, just so you can watch this segment in particular for yourself to really understand how muddled and confusing it is. It is completely baffling. I really feel like I'm missing a crucial piece of the puzzle here, but the more you try to analyze it, the more confusing it becomes. I really do hope to God this was just made in an afternoon and all improvised on set, because this is truly god awful. And then after the end title card they make a little joke about the alternate title being The Memory Lucy Suppressed from her 7th birthday, hee, and that it wasn't really her mum's fault, hee, which is complete bullshit, because what I just saw were the actions of an insane person who chose to put a corpse in a panda costume in front of an army of children. It was entirely her fault. Every single thing that happened was 100% the result of her piss poor, awful decision making, aka it was her fault. It is not a comedy anthology. You can do dark comedy, you can do horror with funny elements in it, but this fails not only at being a horror, but also at being comedy. Whatever. Either way, it failed in every aspect possible, and I simply can't talk about it for any longer without getting angry. For some reason I didn't think to look until way afterwards at who directed each segment, but it turns out the singer St. Vincent was in charge of this one. So as a first-time director, it probably explains why this is so utterly terrible. It might be a good idea to stick with the music, mate. Don't Fall is by far the best of the four, but really is not saying much. It's the only one that delivers on the kind of experience you would hope to see on something like this. Some unlikable idiot young people go exploring in a desert somewhere and all end up being killed by a creature. Great, fantastic, that's all I want from the 20 minutes.
I didn't see that trucks behind me.
Apart from having a terrible name and also having one of the worst lines of dialogue I've ever heard.
This is so fucking epic, right?
It stands out just because it's the only one of the four that has something I can point to and say, yeah, I'm glad my eyes looked at that. That was vaguely enjoyable for a couple of seconds before I immediately forgot about it.
15% of ability power would be like 150
backhanded compliment.
once I hit
I am
the
totally
max.
grasping at straws, and it
So
really
this
is
could be
just
decent.
a huge backhanded compliment. The plot is so simple I can probably
I'll
describe
try it
in
out
a
for this
couple of
game, see if it's any
seconds.
good.
35-year-olds pretending to be 20-year-olds find creepy cave drawings in the desert. One of them gets an infection from some unexplained demon thing. It really doesn't matter. She becomes a scary creature with some surprisingly decent practical effects compared to what I was expecting, and it kills everyone except for the other girl who didn't listen to the title. So but then the creature does just kill her, so that was that. We don't even have much else to say about this one because it very much just is what it says on the tin.
I just have to
If
toss the
all
ults
of
at the
short
jacks.
films were as mindlessly enjoyable as this one, I certainly would not have been motivated enough to ever open my mouth long enough to talk about them. But here we are. We don't live in that universe. I wouldn't say this is anything particularly interesting, but I would be okay with seeing something like this fully developed into a 90-minute monster movie or something. Because apart from The Hills Have Eyes, I can't really think of many horror movies that take place in a desert, which to me could be quite a creepy setting if done correctly. Her only living son. Last and almost least is her only living son, which, surprise surprise, is utterly boring nonsense. Continuing on with the amateur nature of these films, the very opening shot has two pairs of eyes with very obvious ring lights being reflected back in them. Like, come on. And this general level of technical incompetence continues throughout, including the clumsy script and wooden acting. There are a lot of boring, awkward scenes of people either sitting or standing around talking to each other. And by the end, you're just kind of wondering, what's the point of any of that? I'm not even going to bother talking about the plot at all because it's simply kind of a retelling of Rosemary's Baby, but this is a universe where Rosemary's Baby grew up to be an angsty teenager.
You know what I want for my birthday, Mom? Privacy. I want some fucking privacy!
Wow, what a great, fantastic idea. But this is without any depth, character building, creepiness, mystery or suspense.
Oh, let me get it.
A story which has been done so much better than you ever could. A 20-minute segment at the end of a cheap horror anthology. I'll never know. But out of the four is the most forgettable. Partially because hardly anything of interest happens, but also partially because by this point you're so exhausted from the constant barrage of garbage, you just kind of want it to end. Conclusion. Ultimately, XX is a failure beyond anything I could have ever anticipated. If this movie was designed to highlight the talent of female directors out there, well, I'm afraid it didn't really work. You know that people of any gender are capable of making both great and awful films, right? Luckily, the whole feminist slant wasn't really that intrusive and it didn't really annoy me at all because I barely noticed it. But when you have one of the short films being abysmal beyond words, two being pointless and awful, and only one being slightly
That was a pretty good grab.
there really is nothing of quality.
I don't know why they weren't attacking him.
Things you can point out as being quality, you could very easily find in spades and countless other examples in this same genre. All I wanted when I went on this fucking bullshit on Netflix at 1 AM was to see something a little bit creepy or horrific, as the premise promises. But the only thing that ended up being horrific was the incompetency of the direction, theming, storytelling, and just about everything else that makes up a compelling piece of visual goddamn media. If you want to have a good hearty laugh, make sure you go and read the Metacritic reviews.
That was such a good exhaust.
Some of the
Holy
most
fuck.
ridiculous hypercritic bullshit I've ever seen in my entire life, and that's saying something. I really do not give a fuck who made the movie. I only give a fuck if it's good or not. Make sure you use the link in the description to see where this film fits in the Search for the Worst ranking list. And why not check out the Search for the Worst playlist, which at this point is full of endless videos about movies of all different qualities.
Yeah. He's so dangerous.
X. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!
Caught in my spiderweb of lies. Actually, I might get this one. That'll be nice. Another active item. I kind of want to farm up bot. Karen's gonna go do that.
I got some new walking boots recently. I need them because it's always raining and muddy in England, and because I need to walk my stupid corgi who farts along. I walked for a few miles in my new boots and realised that the right one dug into my ankle, to the point where it caused excruciating pain, meaning that I had to limp for 2 miles to get home. It really hurt. Although, despite the agonising, seemingly infinite pain that I felt from that boot, I think I'd do it all again if it meant I would never have to see another frame from F the Prom.
We fighting?
I find movies that are made by YouTubers to be endlessly fascinating, usually in how terrible and inept they are. And F the Prom is certainly no exception. The unique idea of a movie being based around prom night comes from the minds of the Fine brothers. You know, The fellas who make the react videos. Now that type of content is certainly not my cup of tea, but I was still curious to see what creative ideas could come from the same guys who made College Kids React to Evil Patrick meme compilation, bracket, Savage Patrick, close bracket, and other such classics. Let me just state that I have absolutely nothing against any of the people responsible for this movie. It is important to try to remove the art from the artist when it comes to things like this. With that being said though, God, it was somehow even worse than I was expecting. Benny Fine directed the movie, but both of the brothers are credited as writers. One of the more distracting elements to me was that with every attempt the movie makes at being relatable to high school teenagers, my brain instinctively flashed an image of the nearly 40-year-old brothers.
Perfect.
What happened with 40 pictures?
Moments like this should be unfiltered.
So what is this movie about? Well, why don't we let Benny Fine explain it to us, because I would just find it exhausting.
The movie is kind of like my take on a high school comedy. I kind of call it like Can't Hardly Wait meets Mean Girls meets The Breakfast Club. And I'd say at its essence it's kind of my own take on popularity and how messed up it really is that high school and the idea of that can be so great for some people and so not great for so many others. And then they have something called prom that completely puts on display how these people are popular and these people aren't. Why?
Why indeed?
It's very funny, but also kind of tugs at your heart in a way that I don't think a lot of comedies do. So get ready for an emotional road.
If you know anything about me, you'll know that I like to think about films mostly in terms of the context of their existence and what I perceive their intent to be. So for example, let's take F for Prom. The context of F for Prom is that it's the debut film from the Fine brothers. So I'll take that into account. I'm not expecting The Revenant from these guys. And then the intent, as Benny just said in that clip I showed, is to be an emotional high school comedy centered around prom, and to poke fun at the fact that high school is horrible and kind of ludicrous. You may have noticed that in this aforementioned clip that Benny doesn't really describe a plot or characters or story, and sticks more to vague themes and illustrates the observational humor of prom and high school. The problem with that though is that the movie has about as much entertainment value as his description of it.
Laughing out loud.
It would be like me making a movie about how my new boots gave me a blister. We all know that blisters are painful and that breaking in new shoes is annoying. A surface level observation that everyone on the planet has also figured out already isn't particularly valuable when it's in conjunction with
I could have killed the Jana too.
good dialogue and layered characters while being held together with a creative visual presentation. Why on earth you would decide, as a genuine fan of film, like Benny really appears to be, to center your debut film that you spent years making around something as trite and vapid as high school prom, beyond the obvious marketability and business reasons of course, but I'd like to think that there was an actual creative motivation behind this that goes a little more in depth than movies make lots of money and I love money.
Bye bye.
I admit it's hard to not leave after prom thinking that though. I have been struggling for hours or even days at this point to come up with the best way to conquer this movie.
Imagine dying as an Ekko with and the last thing you hear is bye bye.
Overwhelmed by how fundamentally flawed every aspect of the film is that I don't even know where to begin. If you boil down a typical film with expected things such as writing, camera work and blocking, acting, audio and music, and in this case the comedy, as it is supposed to be funny, not a single one of these elements is even mediocre to me. It's all bad. I suppose
I actually don't have enough.
Start at the beginning and just see what happens.
I'm gonna surprise them because I'm just gonna walk up and honor them.
From Prison Break. The film opens on a 1 minute 17-second long shot. It seems like it's just trying to show off instead of using the technique for any kind of narrative purpose. Okay, great, I'm sure getting the timing right on that inappropriate dad comment was really difficult and everything. But to what end did that serve? If anything, all it did was make the timing worse. We all know, comedy is all about timing.
That was actually a good joke.
Oh my god, Dad!
That unfunny, strangely placed, horribly executed, inappropriate, awkward joke that is at the expense of a character that is supposed to be 14 or 15 perfectly summarizes the sense of humor that this movie has. It's really not very nuanced or good. In fact, it often just comes off as kind of nasty.
Remember what I told you. Popular is the best.
Strangely telling small little detail in how flawed
That route didn't last very long.
to its target audience is the fact that the opening credits are surrounded by emojis. We all know I love those. Because I guess when you boil down teenagers, that's all they represent. Small little jaundiced faces. Referencing mobile phones or
I couldn't
emojis
press the R
seems to
button.
be the kiss of death for pretty much any film, whether it be LOL, Selfie from Hell, yes that exists, Not Cool, the Emoji Movie, or any number of these pointless dumpster fires. Just stop doing it. It's as simple as that. We have very clearly established that it makes your film appear tacky and shallow from the get-go, so why even choose to include the concept? Also, just one tiny little thing. Why are they even wearing a helmet if they're not going to tighten the straps? Really donor alert.
I want people to think I'm a loser.
You can probably already tell
Alright, let's
it's
back up.
very on the nose about its dialogue, themes, and what it's trying to accomplish. I'm not sure if the Fine Brothers understand that being subtle is even an option, but instead of information naturally being inferred from the characters' actions, they instead blurt out their motivations any chance they get. Everything is exceptionally simple, black and white, predictable, and surface level. And most importantly of all, no one
Fighting on all these minions is really annoying. Wait,
matters when your movie is about.
Did Cloud Soul kill? Are you serious?
Human beings don't act or react like the meat puppets in this
Alright,
movie.
I'm gonna just
Okay,
walk
think
into
of
them.
it this way. It would be the equivalent of Luke Skywalker mumbling to himself while the binary sunset is beautifully in the sky. I must be destined for better things. I have a lot of wonder and want nothing more than to experience adventure, as to not end up like my uncle, who was boring and lame. Most of
Soraka.
us have eyes. You can understand visual storytelling. It's what movie means, moving image. If 3-year-olds can understand it in picture books, then surely the audience for this movie can. Immediately as Super 8 walks into high school, he gets his pants pulled down. Which is of course hilarious and never been done in one of these movies before. This results in his friend distancing herself from him because high school is shallow. LOL.
Laughing out loud.
Cut to 3.5 years later and Prison Break is now
Lol.
the most popular girl in school.
Edward and Alphonse Elric.
Yes.
Brothers. Alchemists.
While Super 8 is an introverted weeaboo who loves Full Metal Alchemist.
Principal Statsill here, welcoming all you sexy young things back from spring break.
This head teacher character, as well as most of the adult characters in this film, have some of the most embarrassing attempts at humor in the entire movie. It says a hell of
I
a
got
lot
2
about
honors.
the
That was a pretty good
also
game.
bad and not Arc teach me nothing, but it's too late now. You're watching this video, so I already committed endless hours into studying and
Time to
analyzing
play.
every single frame. I've spent days on end combing through my research, and I've managed to boil down my conclusion of what Shark Exorcist represents to me into one single easy to digest word. This word, of course, being What do you mean that's not a word, and it's just a collection of disgustingly loud mouth noises?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Well, you see, no word in the English language can summarize my hatred for this movie. And this is simply the only way I can convey my feelings across to you. And by now you're probably realizing that I've been avoiding actually talking about the intricacies of the movie itself, and you're right. But I think it's time. I've warmed up now, my notes are complete, I'm in the right mood, I've taken my anxiety medication to stop this film literally making my heart explode from frustration. Let's start by looking at the details of the plot. This video has more of a plot than the fucking movie does. Telling a story shouldn't be that hard. I know making a movie isn't easy at all, but telling a story is simply ingrained into human nature. It's what we're best at, really. What do we talk to each other about? About how there was that cashier that was rude to us that one time? Or that memory you have with a friend? Or how you're super excited about something that you've been planning for months and months? The point is, you'd think for a world of people who do nothing but tell stories to each other nearly every day of our lives, directors and writers such as Donald Farmer, who was both director and writer on Shark Exorcist, would have a bit more of a fucking clue. Because you see, Shark Exorcist has no story. There is no through line, no focus, no goal, no characters, no artistic value, no themes, no structure. No point. I really do not understand how or what the thought process behind something like Shark Exorcist was. What is trying to be achieved? I don't know, I couldn't tell you. From the DVD cover and the plot summaries on IMDb and elsewhere, it seems obvious. You'd assume it would be a tongue-in-cheek, cheap exploitation B-movie riding off the coattails of various shark movies and horror films which are popular at the time. I'm not asking for much, I'm really not. I know low-budget filmmaking is not easy, but that's also not an excuse. You see it all the time with these trashy movies. The excuse that it's okay because they're not being fed money from the studio, it's all independent, we're independent. But when you're being outshined left and right, even on places like YouTube, which offers free entertainment by a myriad of incredibly talented people with production values and artistry far beyond anything you're capable of doing in your movie that you're actually charging money for, then I say the floodgates are open for every single scrap of criticism that gets thrown your way, buddy boy.
Yeah,
this is the way the movie
range.
goes, okay? I'm going to refrain from talking about technical aspects until a little later, so I can really highlight how nothing makes any sense whatsoever. The reason I have to break this down so much is because there is something shitty and awful in every single shot. No joke. The opening sequence is of a nun walking through a graveyard in broad daylight. There is no atmosphere or mood because the time of day they chose to film. She wanders over to the shoreline where a different woman aggressively confronts her for something but gets stabbed to death. Again, in broad daylight, with a busy road only a few number of meters away. Truly embarrassing. The nun proceeds to drag the victim into the ocean as some kind of demonic sacrifice, where her vocal cords are stressed to the max because of how loud the ocean must be, and they needed to make sure the cheap mic could pick up the audio.
Lord Satan, accept my sacrifice!
There's an awkward cut to a bad CG, probably stock animated, let's be honest. Nothing at all. This movie was released in 2015. The shark swims towards the camera and it fades to black. Title card. The intro credits have the Zapped style, unrelated stock footage. It's not unrelated in terms of sharks and jellyfish being irrelevant to the plot, but more that any sense of style or mood is lost when it's nothing but extremely obvious stock footage.
I'm out of water.
Later, where we're introduced to the obnoxious three main people in the movie. I'm intentionally avoiding referring to
I have
these
no
characters
sums are old
because
on
they are
my
not.
combat.
100 degrees outside, and this car's got no air conditioning. Real nice.
I like it hot.
Well, you're weird.
Every single interaction between two or more humans is the most stilted, awkward, and unnatural exchange you could ever possibly imagine in a movie.
Well, I don't know why I'm going.
The three women, on this wonderful overcast day, are going to tan by the lake because this is a movie with shark in the title and we need an excuse for scantily clad beach babes. I know I said I wouldn't talk about technical aspects just yet, but this shot here pisses me off too much to not mention it right now. The most egregious aspect is that the camera is nearly always handheld and shaky, which would be fine if there was a reason for it. There simply isn't. This shot would work 100 times better if the camera was mounted on a tripod and still, almost to reflect how everything seems calm and untouched. Just like the water, which would mean when she inevitably gets attacked, the jump to a handheld viewpoint could help accentuate the sudden unorganized chaos of the scene. But instead we just get this messy, tasteless, and distracting visual nightmare. At least whoever's holding the camera seems to understand the rule of thirds. Sort of, which is something I guess. The woman casually attempts to swim away from the shark, which is clumsily spliced in every few seconds, which is the exact same reused shot from earlier, by the way. But she does get attacked. Or at least it's implied that she's attacked, with a few random shots of bad shark CG interlaced with her flailing around in the shallow water like a fucking beaked fish. She doesn't die though. Her friends conveniently retrieve her from the shallows, where she proceeds to panic.
Stay with me. Stay with me.
About the ketchup the cameraman spilt on her. I mean, I can only guess that's what happened because that is not a shark bite. Once the Oscar-winning performances are over.
Calm down, calm down. Calm down. Calm down. Lauren, get to the house, please.
It cuts to black, where the most telling scene in the entire movie is highlighted. Now, I could be wrong, but it seems like these shots were filmed in a real active hospital in secret. Yeah. At first, I admit, I was impressed because I thought this was a real hospital set. Ooh. Oh shit, they've actually got a hospital set thing. This looks like a real hospital. But of course not. This is Shark Exorcist we're talking about. That would be way too much money and effort. You don't see a single character who's actually in the movie in this hospital. He almost definitely just walked into a hospital and secretly filmed it. Now, the worst actress in the entire movie is in an arcade for no reason other than because they found a machine with sea creatures on it. And look, wow, shark is in the title of this movie. Aren't sharks in the sea too? She leaves with her friend and the scene has no point. They sit on a bench and inform us, the audience, that the girl who was bitten has miraculously healed from the shark bite.
Big money.
I just got back from the hospital.
Cool.
Why haven't you been there to see Allie?
Just because.
Okay, well, I thought that you might want to know that she got released today because apparently she got miraculously healed from the shark bite.
Right, hang on. I just need to pause this for a second to take a break. To rest my brain, because the scene that's about to ensue is the most baffling part of this movie. Okay, I'm ready. Let's do it. We're introduced to this woman who is supposed to be presenting some fake reality TV show about paranormal investigation called Ghost Whackers. Fucking whack your ghost in a minute, cunt. They show the camera guy of the guy who's filming the show inside of this movie that we're watching, who gives her the thumbs up to say that she's doing a good job. But then it arbitrarily cuts to the other way round, where the woman is looking at the cameraman, but for no reason at all other than because the film has no direction or any idea what to do. She stares straight into the camera and addresses the audience, completely breaking the fourth wall. I mean, it would make sense if that guy filming the show inside of the movie wasn't there, I guess, or if she was still looking at him, but instead I'm just horribly confused and a bit scared. Was there any direction to the scene? Like, what the fuck?
A giant shark is feeding on the swimmers.
The scene ends with her writhing around on the floor for some reason. It's truly puzzling.
I will eat your flesh and swallow your soul.
We're reintroduced to the bitch who was attacked by the shark, except I'm left thinking she has major brain damage from the attack because she's holding her hand out to hitchhike without any cars around.
Wait, I don't have enough for the thing.
Eventually, she does happen to stumble across a porn actor in a 4x4 who tries to finger
I'm doing
her
the
pussy,
lagging thing
like
again.
They just met and he's just trying to finger her. But she's not into that. But that's okay though, because it transitions to them basically naked in a lake, getting each other nice and wet and flirting. So, yeah. Unlucky for the porn actor man, the woman sinks underwater and disappears, and then a shark eats him. Again, this is only implied because we don't see anything at all. Like, come on, how could a shark even fit here? The water barely goes up to his waist. 20 minutes in and we're finally introduced to the religious side of this movie, where the priest gets... Wait, hang on. Isn't that the same actor as the guy who just got killed mere seconds ago? The urge to just stop this video right here. I've got...
There will be parties again soon, and family gatherings. There will be parade.
Gotta fight it so fucking hard. The excuse is that the priest gets a letter saying that it was his brother who was killed by the shark.
It is with a heavy heart that I must inform you of the death of your brother.
The scene has no real point or merit on its own. Moving on. Back to these dumb motherfuckers, where she's still looking at the wrong camera and it makes no sense. An armored skeptic runs over and explains why ghosts
So what
are
I
dumb
did there,
is
it was a
very
little bit
graceless and bad.
complicated.
Another
I
dumb
hit
and pointless scene that has no point
all
and
of
is
the
dumb.
buttons that I have,
Then I
and then
mentioned
she
that it's
died.
dumb and pointless. Back to
So
the
if you want
priest,
to try
the
that,
only kind of
just do
good-looking
that.
shot in the entire movie. Like, if I took a still from this right now, I could actually trick you into believing
Figure it
that
takes
this
a lot
is
of skill to
something that
play.
isn't complete shit. It looks like at this point in the production they invested in a tripod, and the camera motion is relatively fluid. They also filmed at the correct time of day for the natural lighting to not look like utter shit. It is my humble opinion that all of these positives I just listed were achieved by complete accident, because nothing of this
coordinated
quality happens again. Now there's a new scene with a bunch of new characters in a graveyard that means absolutely nothing. I'll quickly fast forward the footage to show you what happens, but I have no clue what it means or why it was in this movie. Oh no. I forgot about this part. I forgot about this fucking part. I really want to skip it. I really want to skip. I really don't want to tell you about it, but at the same time I have to. A 35-year-old woman in a children's park is either pretending to be a child or a mentally disabled person. I'm not trying to be funny with edgy insults there, but there is no other explanation for this behavior.
I like just use my E now she wants to go in. cancel my auto.
Right here. This fucking shot right here is the #1 reason this goddamn movie is my least favorite of the bunch. I mean, the rest is bad. The rest of this movie is fucking bad. Real bad. But when your movie is so backwards that this is how you think people go down fucking slides. Nuh-uh.
Oh, I thought that was Ashy.
I'm not having it. Not this time. Fuck you, movie. Fuck you.
I see you here. Wanna play? I like your sharks. Me too, sharks are so cool. No, please don't eat me! I'll meet you right now.
Awkward. So awkward. I have never been more uncomfortable.
So what do you like to do, Allie?
Holy fuck.
I like to get wet.
Ooh.
I like to get wet.
Okay, scratch that. I've officially been more uncomfortable. The
Close.
child, I guess, leads the shark bite lady to a swimming pool
they
at
fighting.
nighttime,
Surprise!
I think she's dead.
Said you like to get wet.
where she undresses in front of this mentally handicapped child, and it's shot like a fucking porno. Literally to the point where she forgets she's in a movie and she looks straight into the camera, like a porno slut who's showing off her body.
I like the
When the girl
lantern.
gets into the pool with her, then
Can't
the
take it,
shark
though.
bite lady does her usual shit and disappears. But right before the shark attack's gonna happen,
Oh my gosh, it cancelled my E because
Yeah.
of the Draven
she
knockup.
wakes up from a dream. None of that scene just happened. It was 100% pointless. Nothing was learnt or conveyed. It's the dictionary definition of
Lex
fucking
got the kill,
pointless.
that's
This
good.
film is made up of nothing but fuck this movie moments, I swear to God. There's another scene with a ghost woman who squirms around on the floor like an unlucky insect who's been defaced by a toddler.
Oh, come inside me.
I couldn't tell you if I was watching a weird porno or not at this point. This scene has no point and conveys absolutely nothing. Are you starting to see a trend here? There's another shark attack scene that has no setup, no payoff, and it comes out of nowhere. But I'm gonna gloss over
you
this
get
because
my
it has no
shutdown back
bearing
from
on
her.
anything else that happens in the movie. Let's be real though, not a single scene actually advances anything. It's not like this is a special case or anything. This next bit is the fucking weirdest shit you've ever seen. I guess the ghost whacker lady is possessed now. She holds her hair back as she pukes on someone. Because I guess that's what possessed people do. Guy running for 5 minutes.
I like just running
Guy
at them.
running for 5 minutes.
Stop the back.
This character we've never been introduced to before.
I'm just gonna drop a
Runs
W.
around for 5 minutes. Literally 5 minutes. And finds the corpse of one of the blonde woman's victims and pukes himself silly.
Oh god. She's still kinda hot. I'd still do her.
She's still kinda hot. I'd still do her. You realize that's a corpse, right? Corpse meaning dead body. Like this is a murder. That's a human life that's been lost. And that's what's on your mind right now.
Salty
I guess it really is
Splatoon.
true that all men are pigs.
Oh.
Hey look, it's 3 more characters we've never seen before being introduced 35 minutes into the movie. The middle one is organizing one of those
They keep
stupid
sneaking
American
up on me.
sorority challenge things and gets the other 2 girls to stand in water that's below their knees. Like, take note that it's below their knees. What a challenge. What an extreme challenge that's so difficult and taxing. But let's give credit where credit is due. This scene is fucking genius, I tell you. Because it's like a whole bait and switch scenario. You're expecting the girls in the shallow water to get eaten because that's how sharks work, right? But instead, get this, the girl on the pier gets munched.
We are going to do this!
What about you, Holly? It's okay to be scared. I won't tell anyone you're just a big pussy.
So this shark attack is composed of 3 shots. Again, all of the violence is implied. The initial shot is of the girl casually standing there leaning on the rail. The actual shot of the attack, if I slow it down and you look really carefully, is of an unrelated woman being eaten by a shark. I guess that's to try and hide the atrocious visual effects. Right, before we move on, I'm just going to ask you, the audience, a question about the scene that just transpired. In your honest and humble opinion, do you think that this shark murder scene has a point, advances the plot, and or conveys something important to the movie? I'll ask again, is this scene A, completely meaningless filler that has no point, doesn't advance the plot and adds nothing to the movie, or B, is this scene completely meaningless filler that has no point, doesn't advance the plot, and adds nothing to the movie?
I want to ult the E,
who's dressed
but
up as a
there we
priest
go.
goes to investigate into
Oh
the
my gosh, I
earlier
misclicked.
because
It doesn't
movie.
matter.
He questions the victim's friend and the mystery continues. To a fun fair that's in
Is that
town
illusion?
and has no
What
relevance
is
to
that?
anything. One of the blonde girls from earlier is there with some boy we've never been introduced to. And the possessed
No, that's
woman
illusion.
who loves getting wet,
That's the Vladimir.
I guess is stalking them. There's basically no audio in this scene. I guess because the bass audio of the funfair was too loud. Instead, we have to endure a seemingly endless mix of this film's
I can't tell
atrocious
what's been
soundtrack.
going on in this video. I've been too focused on the game. It's really confusing me.
Well, never thought I'd ever see a porn star priest walking through a colourful funfair at night. Never say never, I guess. For some reason, the possessed woman now has these little demon teeth. When I first saw this on the cover of the DVD, I was pretty excited for how it'd look in the movie. Pretty disappointed, not gonna lie. I have no idea at all what any of that was supposed to be. I guess they broke up? Are these humans? Who are these people? Unfortunately for the fella, he basically gets killed by the vampire.
Oh, there's a vampire.
Oh shit!
What is going on? The priest catches the vampire
split.
feasting and screams.
Demon, the power of Christ commands you! The power of Christ commands you!
I mean, close enough? Right, so the priest ties the girl to a tree and shoves a cross in her face because that's how exorcisms work in the movies. The only somewhat goofy and entertaining thing that happens in the entire movie transpires, and it's just a much more worser scene than The Exorcist. So I guess because he's covered in puke, it makes the priest mad, so then he strangles her. But I guess she wasn't secured very well because she's just free now. Then he kisses the priest, and his eyes go red, and a shark falls out of the sky from a portal and kills him.
I maybe could have ulted him. No, I think I'll ult the Lexana. No, it didn't let me.
Cuts to black, but the film is somehow still not over. We're introduced
Now
to
this
yet
is
another
what I
new
call
character.
epic.
He drives to a lake by herself on an
I don't
overcast
wanna
day to
die,
sunbathe.
but I guess
Why
I
she chose
will.
this area in particular to sunbathe, I'll never know. I mean, it's fucking gross. Look at it. He gets undressed and it's tasteless. Then, in the most because movie reveal I've ever seen, some guy who we truly never find out about, by the way, comes out from hiding behind a tree and takes a bunch of creep shots of her. Then, after taking all of these pictures of her, he stands right over her and has a double check through all of them to make sure they're suitably creepy. Then he leaves and he's never seen again. Not one single bit.
I don't have water.
At any point whatsoever. Not one fucking point. No relevance. You could edit that out and nothing would be lost. Nothing. She gets up from sunbathing and then... It's the nun from the beginning. I remember you. Who am I kidding? Who is she? Who violently stabs her to death for some reason. But then, inexplicably, I think the girl who got killed at the beginning suddenly rises from the lake and battles the nun into the water in broad daylight with boats everywhere. I guess this is symmetry for the scene at the beginning, like a bookend. I really don't know. And don't forget the shark gameplay that is spliced in for no reason. I have no idea what's going on. We go back to two of the girls from the beginning. I guess we find out that this one somehow survived the shark warping out of the portal in the sky.
Please tell me what's wrong.
You don't want to know.
Yes, yes, I really do.
Forgive me.
Fuck you so hard. She didn't even fucking jump in the water. They like threw a stone in. Okay, so you'd think that seems like the ending, right? Wrong. After the credits play, there's this scene in an aquarium where nothing happens, and also the weirdest fucking shit you've ever seen. And this shit right here, this shit. It goes on for nearly 7 fucking minutes! Without this scene right here, I could have forgiven the movie and moved on with my life, but this proves to me. This scene proves to me that the filmmakers wanted me to fucking hate this pile of shit, pathetic excuse for entertainment. But wait. But wait. There is more. There is more. More credits are shown. More credits are shown. And there's another after credit scene, which means nothing and makes no sense. Fuck.
Elena, someone burned down your house with you inside.
I hate when that happens.
Do you know anyone that would do this?
You ask this woman to come work in our house? You don't even know her.
I don't even need to do anything. They'll just kill everyone for me.
Everything to start over.
Are you just gonna pretend nothing happened?
Why is this music so random?
Scare us.
Can I stack here before we end? Let's see. It's not fair to deny me of the cross I bear when you gave to me. I think I just sold. Oh, come on! He was the one I needed. I needed the Vladimir. Freaking Vladimir. I didn't even get an assist. Wait, I did get an assist. How?
This movie is so incompetent that I actually have to dedicate an entire section to how it fails technically on nearly every level.
I misspelled that.
This film has no structure, making this review extremely hard to make. I feel like my descriptions and pacing have been lacking, but seriously, this film is completely incomprehensible. None of it makes any sense. In comparison, I really cannot believe I'm saying this, I may regret this later, but The Amazing Bulk actually makes more sense than this movie. At least I could tell you the story of The Amazing Bulk. I've been sat here talking about this film, literally trying to convey the story to you that I've prepared in advance, and I still couldn't tell you the actual plotting of the movie. It's just a bunch of scenes. It's just a bunch of fucking scenes.
Another W.
Nothing is linked, characters come and go, seemingly at random. It just ends. It's all pointless filler that's just long enough to be slapped onto a DVD and sold with a stupid name. IMDb estimates the budget of this movie being $300,000.